Welcome to Red Door Conversations. I'm your host, Lisa White, and I get to share this amazing platform with three other amazing women. I'm going to start off with the lovely Marla Lewis. How are you today, Marla?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm well. I am well. I'm glad to be here. You look amazing today.
Thank you, ma'am. So do you. I love the hat you're sporting.
Well, thank you so much. This is a little something for you guys. And how are you, Miss Tana?
I am doing wonderful.
I love your hair today.
Thank you. Got a little fluff.
Yes, a little crimp to it.
Mm-hmm.
And last but certainly not least, the lovely Miss Kimberly Dixon Dudley.
Hello, hello, hello. How you doing, ladies?
Are y'all ready for this show?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We're into it.
So the title of this show, guys, today is So You Want to Be a Developer. Everybody sitting at this table, we get asked so many questions. What is the difference between an investor, developer, builder? And we're going to answer those questions for you today. We have two amazing guests. Our first guest is none other than the Mr. Tyron Mcdaniel, who is the owner of Houston Vintage Homes. Tyron is a developer for affordable housing, and he was born and raised in the historical Fifth Ward community. As a kid growing up in the shadows of downtown, he often dreamed and thought about being a builder and a developer in his own area that he grew up in. He saw some things that he wanted to make better about that community. After meeting his wife, Angela, who was already in real estate, and by the way, she's lovely, as a couple, they embarked on a wonderful journey building a business of residential real estate. We also have with us our very own Kimberly Dixon Dudley. Kim is a full-time, guys, you know what full-time means, right?
Always on the go.
That's it,
Yes.
full-time residential real estate broker, okay? She's the owner of Kimberly Lane Properties, where she manages 10 licensed agents. And Marla, you can attest to that, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so that's a full-time job
Handful.
being some. In 2018, Kimberly decided to extend her real estate brand to include residential development, creating Dick Doug LLC, which is her husband's nickname for her, merging her two last names, Dixon and Dudley. Okay? Kim has helped other investors build, sell, and buy, and in all different types of residential communities over the years. But her first personal development that she's embarking upon is called Vantage Point Development at Sunnyside. This is an affordable gated neighborhood of 20 single-family homes in the historical Sunnyside. Okay? And so I've been over there. It's going to be amazing. I'm so very proud of Kim. Vantage Point is at 50% reserve right now. Yes.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Yep. Go, Kim.
And they're going to be breaking ground very, very soon. And so
Awesome.
she's going to tell you a little bit about it on the show today. But if you really want to get the deets, you need to go to www.vpsunnyside.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you.
So y'all ready to give it to them on this show?
We're ready
Yes.
to give it everything on this
Yes.
Okay, guys, you get your pen and paper. You stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you guys for staying with us. I hope you got your pen and paper. This is Red Door Conversations, and we have Mr. Tyron Mcdaniel with us, who is the owner of Houston Vintage Homes, and we have our lovely co-host, Miss Kimberly Dixon Dudley, who is the developer for Vantage Point at Sunnyside Community and the owner of Dick Doug Investments. So I'm going to start off with our host,
Okay.
Miss Kimberly Dixon Dudley. So many people use the terms investor, developer, and builder interchangeably. Can you break that down for us? Is there a difference between those three terms?
Okay, Lisa, I'm glad you put it out there that way because, you really can be one of those people or you can be all three of those people. Typically, an investor, though, is a person who has an intimate knowledge of the industry.
Okay.
They're not usually involved with the planning or preliminary research that goes on. They're someone who has access to capital. They have an investment strategy in their mind already, and they're looking for a return on their investment.
So the investor, a lot of times, is kind of silent in all of that.
They can be.
Okay.
They can be.
They can be active or silent.
They can be active or silent.
Okay.
Typically, they want to look at a project in its totality and figure out if it meets their investment strategy and it's giving them the return that they're looking for.
Got it. Okay.
Like a
Good
solid
question.
business
So that's an
partner.
investor. What
That's
is
an
a
investor.
developer and what's a builder?
So a builder, again, you can be one, you can be all three of these people, right?
Okay.
A builder is just what it sounds like. A builder is a contractor. This is the person that's hired to build a project from foundation up to finished product.
Okay.
Okay? Now the developer, developer is what Tyron and I get the chance to do. A developer orchestrates and shoulders the entire faction of project management and development. They are the start to finish. This is the hat that we get to wear. But I actually see it from a unique perspective because I'm a real estate broker first. So the marketing component was my first mind. I am an investor, and then I'm also the developer. But I'd like to, my coin terminology for developers are visionaries.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, developers really have to be visionaries. We're risk takers. There's a lot of preliminary research, a lot of planning, but you've got to start with a few key points as a developer. One, you either have access to a tract of land, a significant size tract of land, or you have partners who have access to that, or you're able to purchase it. And then that leads me to the second point is you need to secure your financing. Because like I told you, the developer wears all hats from start to finish. They typically finance the bulk of the project itself, right? And then you're going to be the person obtaining all of your approvals. You're going to navigate that project
When you say approvals, you mean with the city?
Approvals with the city. So it's a little different to do a development of 10 to 20, 30, 50 units or more than it is one single family home. If you have a single family home you're building on a lot, you're tapping into utilities that probably already exist on that lot. Whereas if you're creating a development from raw land, you're having to go to the municipalities, water, wastewater, sewer, and get all those utilities brought to your site, right? So there's some planning involved on the development side that is not as intricate or detailed as it is to build a single family home.
Got it.
Okay. Now, Mr. Tyron, can you tell us what is the best way to structure a deal?
So she kind of laid out some of those things. I call it the 4Ds of development. First of all, you have your due diligence, which involves, understanding what can be built. Are you being subjected to any kind of HOA restrictions or things of that nature? So that's the first thing you have. Then you have your design component. So generally, as I always say, real estate, specifically development, is truly a team sport. So each of these Ds represents a different set or group of people that are part of your team. So when it comes to design, you either have an architect or a designer that's going to help you craft a vision for what it is that you're looking to do. The other D that you're going to have is what I call dinero. How are you going to capitalize the project? Development of building is a very capital intensive process, and you generally have to invest and put money, what I say, into the ground by paying for things well in advance of actually seeing your units come out of the ground. So it's very important to be properly capitalized. Can't speak. And the final D is disposition. And that represents having a real estate broker and or agents and or a sales team that's going to help you, one, identify what your price point should be and what is the propensity to move those units as soon as they're built or in advance of being constructed. So if you can kind of keep it simple and break down your deal and follow those 4Ds, it will help you be successful and kind of get your project started off quickly without some of the added hassles and delays that most people encounter when they're doing a project.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Now, I do have another question in regards to that. You mentioned capital. Where are some of the places that a person, say, starting out, want to be a developer, where would they get that capital? Small banks, large banks, credit unions? Where's a good place to start?
So, I would like to look at it. Capital, I like to equate it to clothing. Today is a pretty hot day in Houston, so I'll have on a short sleeve shirt. If it was cold outside, I'd have on a jacket or a windbreaker or something like that. So it's important to understand that from a financing perspective, you want to have the right financing partner for your particular situation. Small banks have an advantage. So banks are definitely not necessarily where you bank at, so the big name brand banks, but actually small niche player banks, because they have dollars that are allocated towards doing development. And depending on what area you may be in, there's some advantageous loan terms, tax advantages, and things of that nature. So small banks is one of the first places I look. Another thriving community for capital is private lenders. There's, this isn't an economics show necessarily, but roughly 20% of all the money in circulation right now has been printed in the last 12 to 18 months. So there's literally trillions of dollars that, from an investing perspective, are out in the marketplace looking for a return. This has created a growth in the private lending industry, and private lenders are just investors who have capital or have leveraged their credit and assets to borrow capital, and now they want to deploy it in the marketplace and get an alpha or return on their money. Generally with private lenders, that's going to be more relationship based. And so this is where you want to be networking with other professionals in the industry. And if you have a track record, it's very easy, or it's easier to secure private lenders. So you have your banks, you have your private lenders, then you just have construction lenders. And these are niche lenders that specifically work with small and or large developers. And so the beauty in working with construction lenders versus, say, a bank or maybe even a private lender is sometimes with a construction lender, they're going to move a little bit quicker because they're efficient. And this is the only type of loan they do. They do them all over the country, which also means you may get some better loan terms because they are experts in this space. So they can be a little bit more aggressive than maybe the small bank will be, because the small bank has charters that they have to subscribe to and not violate, whereas this construction lender may have very liberal guidelines that will allow you to, say, get into your project with a smaller amount of down payment. So those are the three primary ways. Obviously, some people build with cash. I don't necessarily recommend that. There's so much that can go wrong in a project, so it's best to leverage the capital and or the resources of one of these other entities and properly finance and insure your project.
Let me just add one other thing to that.
Okay,
Well,
go
before
ahead.
you go on,
Go ahead.
because sometimes people think capital and they just think money.
Mhm.
But capital could be land or assets. So, for instance, we're partnering on a JV venture where I partnered with one of my landowners.
Okay.
So he provided the land and he owned outright, and I funded the infrastructure and the construction of it. So when you're thinking about capital, there's so many unique ways to structure a deal. Don't get laser focused and I've got to go out and find this money. But think about assets as well.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So Kim,
We're
who's
gonna hold that thought. We're gonna go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
So good.
All right.
It's
Stay
so
with
good.
us. Stay with us. Welcome back to Red Door Conversations. I'm your co-host, Lisa White. And so in our last segment, we were talking about how to structure the deal, what are the components, what should be the components when you're structuring the deal. And Mr. McDaniel mentioned a construction lender as an option to fund your project. And so in commercial break, I asked Mr. McDaniel, was the construction lender, did that mean a better interest rate? He said not necessarily, and I wanted you guys to hear his answer. Take it away, Mr. McDaniel.
So, we talked about private lenders versus construction lenders and the difference, or private money lenders. And so the construction lenders, when I say they may have some better terms, it's not necessarily interest rate. Generally, the small banks are going to have probably the best interest rate and fee structure. But what the construction lender will allow you to do is they'll let you borrow more against the value of the property. So where your small bank may only do, say, 70% or 75% of the value, a construction lender will go 75 to 80%. I've even seen some that go as far as 90% of what the ARV of the project is. So there's interest rates is one aspect of terms, but then you have your fees, and then you have what we call LTV, which is the loan to value. So how much are they going to lend you in relation to the value? So all of those are key things that you want to look at to determine which is going to be the best scenario for you.
Got it.
Okay. Now, I do have a question for both Tyron and Kim. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that developers are facing now? Who wants to go first?
Kim, why don't you go first? Ladies first.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll tell you some of the biggest challenges we have faced in real
Okay.
time. And
Especially right now,
especially in
during COVID.
Houston. Well, in Houston particularly because we are at sea level. Most of the city is at sea level. So our flooding and zoning guidelines for the city are changing sometimes quicker than we can change a project.
Okay.
For instance, we had a new guideline that rolled out on March 31st.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were in the middle of planning your project, your drainage and detention guidelines could have changed in the middle of your planning the project.
Oh, wow.
And so if I could share anything for anybody who's interested in getting into this space, it would be have the right people on your team who have current, accurate, up-to-date information with what their guidelines are regarding drainage and sewage, especially in the city of Houston.
That's a lot to consider. Tyron, what about you? Sorry.
Well, one of the things that I think is pertinent right now is the rapid increase of material costs. Perfect example is we were buying OSB, which is oriented strand board. It's a sheathing that's used on most new or a lot of new construction. We were buying that for, this time last year, $7 to $8 a sheet, depending on which lumber yard. Right now, it's over $30 a sheet. So the biggest issue I see that developers are facing right now, and outside of all the normal issues that we have, are these rising material costs. And that also impacts not just how much it takes to build, because if you haven't factored these increases into your purchase price, you may have agreed to sell a house for $259,000. Fast forward 90 days into the future, which is now the present, and that $259,000 price may really need to be more like $289,000, $299,000. And so that's a very huge issue. And the last part of that is the appraisals haven't caught up with the increase in material costs. So now you're having an issue sometimes getting your properties to appraise for the right amount based on what it took for you to put in them.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
That's
It's a
good.
major
Good,
issue
good
right
stuff
now.
to hear.
So, Kim, I was going to ask you, you mentioned having the right people on your team that, have the most up-to-date current information. How do you go about as a developer? What are some of the key people that you need to have in your team? And also, my second question is, how do you go about, I guess, choosing those people? What are some of the things that you want to look for?
Good.
Oh, that's good. Good second
Good
question.
qualifications.
So we talked about a couple of things at the beginning of the show. A couple of people who are important. I think I heard Tyron mention architects or engineers. So first and foremost, before we're gonna beat this like it's a dead horse, right? But you've got to secure your financing. And securing the right financing partner, it can make or break a deal, right? So that's your first big relationship you need to have up front. Engineers, architects, land planners, surveyors. If you have your pens, you guys write these people down. You'll need to get to know them. Attorneys, accountants, and of course, finally, your realty specialist. Because like Tyron was saying, you've got to keep up with pricing and values in real time as you're going through the project. So those are some of the key people. And for me, I share my own experience. Tyron, you mentioned going to networking events and moving in circles where those people are already there. I think it's also important for you to make sure that the person you select has an understanding of your vision. Every development is not the same.
Yes.
If your architect is not familiar with affordable housing or redeveloping a community, they may have a big box vision where you're trying to start in a different place. And so I think you really have to it's an interview process. What have you done? Let me look at your products. We obviously take bid proposals for each
Just vetting
vendor.
them really well.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to make sure that person, that architect, engineer, that contractor who's building lines up with your whole vision as a developer. And I'll share this, and you didn't ask me this, but as a citizen, you are welcome to attend your city planning commission meetings.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I would encourage people to join those calls, even if you don't say anything. This is how your community is being planned. This is who's doing what in your neighborhood. You get to hear those architects, engineers, land planners in real time. What are they proposing? So you can learn who those people are just by attending your public city planning commission meetings.
That leads us
Very
into
good.
our next question. That's you, Tyron.
Oh, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
But before we go to the next question, we're gonna wrap this up and come right back. So stay tuned. All right. Well, thank you for staying with us as we wrap up the show. We have a last and final question that I am going to volley to my developer cohort, Tyron. So Tyron, this is a big question. We want to know, we want to let the audience know, what are some of the pitfalls that you've learned and the hard way regarding residential development? What do people need to be on the lookout for if they're interested in getting into the residential development space?
You know, I would say the first thing that's vitally important is being properly capitalized. When you don't have enough money, good projects go to die there. And so making sure that not only do you have your financing in place, but also have this concept I call your just in case partners. And your just in case partners are people you show your project to at the very beginning, and they'll want to be involved. But if you already have your financing secure, you let them know, listen, you are part of the group of people that I'm gonna call when something happens. This is development. Stuff always happens. So you're gonna need capital or at some point in time, or maybe an infusion of capital. And so I would say, number one, being properly capitalized, and number two, understanding that yes, you're managing construction, but you're really in a timing business. And so you have to be able to get your project going, get it up, and then get it sold in order to be effective. If you miss being properly capitalized and you don't take advantage of timing, then you set yourself up for failure.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
Yes.
Excellent point.
Time is money is what he's saying.
Time is money.
That
Time is always money.
That
Time is always
And-
money.
and
That's,
speaking-
that's my aha moment.
Right. But
It's everything.
speaking of time, we've run out of time today.
I hate
So
that.
yeah, so this is the end of our show today, but we want
Just
to
get fun.
thank. I know we were just getting into it.
Yeah.
We want to thank
You have to come back, Mr. McDaniel.
You have to come back and give us an update on your projects.
Oh, sure.
And we just want to thank everybody for tuning into the show. You can find out more about Red Door Conversations. Just Google us. But if you are waiting on the next show, stay tuned. We'll be back.
Bye-bye.
Bye.